Hi everyone, it's Legato. I'm back with another State of the Game video blog, this time discussing the patch notes. So the first change is that the 2-beast synergy was increased from 10% damage to 15% damage. This is a minor change, but I still think it's going to have a nice impact. For example, in a 9 warrior build, getting an additional 5% attack damage is going to help. It's also likely to help druid builds that may end up being feathered hunter, but if you hit the druids early on, you have a little bit more reason to not necessarily sell unicorn right away. It could be a unit that you 3-star and then put a bear in, and those are transitional units to help you get to like a 6-feathered 3-hunter Grim Touch build. Minor change, but I like it. Both the 3 goblin and the 6 goblin bonuses have had their HP restoration increased from 10 HP per second to 15 HP per second. I think this is overall a very minor change, perhaps a little bit more impactful for the Goblin 3 bonus. I missed the fact that they increased the armor from 12 to 15. So it's not that big of a change, but it is a 20% increase in the amount of, I guess 25, right? 3 out of 12. So a 25% increase in the amount of armor that the bonus was providing, and a 50% increase in the amount of HP restoration it was providing. Although on a numerical level, the changes are small, a percentage swing like that in the early game rounds, when frequently those rounds are won by such a tight margin, I think this will help out goblins a little bit, especially with winning the rounds and getting the mech bonus, which is very important for them to gain momentum in the early game. Next change, Lord of Sand has had its ultimate damage increased from 350 to 450 when you 3-star it. No change to the 1-star or 2-star versions of the unit. So I think this is most likely going to impact only insectoid builds. It's very rare to see a 3-star Lord of Sand that players build by accumulating 9 units and combining them all. It's much more likely that the 4 insectoid bonus is going to be cranking out Lords of Sand, and that's an 100 HP AoE damage increase to those units. So that's where I see the impact. Next one, Spider Queen had its HP increased by 1/8 from 800 to 900, 1600 to 1800, 3200 to 3600. So a little bit over a 10% HP buff for Spider Queen. I think Spider Queen needed a little bit of help in 6-hunter builds. I think it rarely pulled its weight, and players more frequently favored the lower cost units and Siren. So hopefully this this will help Spider get its ability off before dying, especially at the 1-star level, which was often a problem for me when I tried to use the unit as a 1-star unit. Combined, if you look at the Lord of Sand and Spider Queen changes, both of these changes are going to go into helping Insectoid out. So I think that build was already incredibly strong when you got it up and running, and just hard to pull off because there's so many 4-cost units that you have to accumulate to make that build work. So I don't know necessarily whether or not it addresses the ease of building up to it, but it certainly makes it more impactful once you get the build up and running. Okay, next up, Flame Wizard. Previously, I think you got the attack speed bonus every time you cast the spell, but it could only stack up to 3 times, and now there's no stack limit. So this could help in a couple of situations. The first is as a unit in Divinity. So that's when you're most likely to be getting your ability off frequently enough that you actually hit the attack speed cap. Another circumstance where you're likely to see this is if Ogre Magi, gets the bonus off on Flame Wizard, and she does a couple ults back to back. The attack speed can kind of go off a little bit there. Flame Wizard was always a unit that it's there's the potential for it to be a carry, and something always just feels a little bit missing. I think if you get like Mjolnir on her and Fuse Mask and you 3-star her, she can be surprisingly impactful against a lot of compositions, notably against like a Goblin Kira build. If you go 4 spirits, Flame Wizard was one of the few units that could actually burst down a 3-star Venomancer in the past, both with her ultimate and the amount of attacks that she was cranking out. So I like the fact that they're doing small changes instead of anything incremental, and then we'll reassess and see if that unit needs some more help after that. Grim Touch had the ability nerfed from 20 to 16, 15 to 12, and 10 to 8 seconds. This nerf is a little bit perplexing to me. I don't think there were too many battles where I had a 2-star Grim Touch, and the fact that the ultimate was on a 12-second cooldown, which is already longer than most units. I don't think there's too many battles that are decided by the fact that Grim Touch got a second ult off. So this one's a little bit of a head scratcher for me. If they felt the unit needed a nerf because it's used in too many compositions like Feathered, Cave, Mages with Dragons, there's a lot of builds that utilize this unit right now, but in most of them you want to either frontline Grim Touch or allow Grim Touch to get the ultimate off as soon as possible. So putting, for example, a Blink Dagger on Grim Touch and trying to get the combo off. I don't see how a cooldown nerf really impacts the ways that most players are relying on Grim Touch. Next up is the change to the 4 Shaman buff. So previously, when a unit killed a Shaman, it became hexed and also lost all of its items. I believe it did revert to full HP, but it had no items. So for example, if a 2-star or 3-star Abyssal Guard had carry items like Shadow Edge or Big Cleave, and then got hexed and turned into Hell Knight, you might have the potential for that unit to still do some damage if it retained the items, but it didn't do that. So I think you'll see a couple of scenarios, of combat scenarios, in which you get a favorable outcome, like a Doom with carry items getting turned into a Pirate with those carry items, or a Venomancer with those carry items, and still being effective. There's probably going to be a lot of situations where a combat unit is 50% or less when they kill a Shaman unit, and then when they get transmuted, not only do they not have all the synergies. So for example, if the Abbey turns into a Hell Knight, there's going to be no Knight synergy to keep it alive. But now going from full HP to low HP is going to make it not turn out so well. On the flip side of the coin, I think this is going to do well for caster units. So for example, if you put a Blink Dagger on Devastator, it blinks to the backline, gets the bomb off, kills a Defector, and then immediately gets transmuted into, let's say, Darkseer or Helicopter or God of Thunder. If you had items that provide ability damage to that Devastator, not only are those items going to carry over well to the other caster unit, but if they start with full mana, you might be able to get an ability off immediately. Another good example would be, Darkseer blinking to the backline, getting the pulse off, and then if that pulse ends up killing a Shaman unit and it turns into Devastator or Helicopter, that pulse, that AoE pulse is still going to be out on the board, but now you're also going to get an immediate additional bomb or helicopter ultimate off. So I think that's kind of interesting for caster units, especially in 6 made 5 dragon, where, for example, God of Thunder could cast its ability immediately, one-shot Defector, and then get turned into Darkseer and get that ultimate off immediately. Overall, it's a little bit of a nerf to Shaman. Still a pretty hard carry against units, against compositions that go for hyper carries, but it's perhaps less effective at hard countering things because you retain the items, and there's a chance that you might even be helping the opponent if the unit that did the killing was an area of effect unit. Okay, next change on board, Lava Shaman. The radius has been reduced, certainly by quite a bit at the 1-star unit level, where it went down from 2.5 to 1.5 radius. That's a really big change. I think anyone who's 3-starred this unit and has seen what a big change it feels like to go from 2.5 radius to 4 understands, how big a 1 or a 1.5 increase in radius can make. So going down from 2.5 to 1.5 is a pretty big change. Personally, I'm not in love with this change. I would have liked to have seen other changes to Lava Shaman, like perhaps leave the area of effect alone, but change the unit cost from 2 to 3. I think one of the big problems with Cave is that before the Cave units were introduced, you needed 5 units, including the 2 wizards, to pull off the 4 Cave bonus. And now you can pull off the 4 Cave bonus by turn 5. And giving all of your units an additional 350 HP that early in the game is super, super impactful. I don't think this reduces the likelihood. I don't think this change specifically to Lava Shaman reduces the likelihood of players leaning on the 4 Cave bonus early. And I think it's also problematic when you see builds that aren't even necessarily looking to use Lava Shaman in their final composition are taking Lava Shaman early or 2-starring Lava Shaman to use it as an effective bridge unit. So I think an increase to 3 cost would have discouraged that more than the decrease to the effectiveness of the unit itself. Okay, last change is that they halved the amount of experience required to go from level 10 to level 11. So previously you needed 20 books of experience to go from level 10 to level 11 because the books provide 2 experience each, and now you only need 10 books. So that's basically a 50% reduction to go from 10 to 11, and then they decrease the amount of books you need from 40 to 30 to go to level 12. So I think this is a bigger change than most people are giving it credit for. The six human is not necessarily a realistic build. So if you were going to win around with 6 human and have one of the human units living to get the 4 books, you're already dominating the lobby, right? You didn't necessarily need to have the pirate or the Argali Knight in. If you're in a mage build, you probably could have put in Water Spirit or Storm Shaman or any number of other units which would make your composition more effective for combat. So if you are already running with those 6 humans, you already have such a tremendous lead in the lobby, and you're just cementing it. So it wasn't, in a competitive match, it wasn't realistic to get the 6 human bonus up and running and win enough rounds to successfully go to level 11 or level 12. On the flip side, 3 humans is pretty realistic. So just having Tortola, Source, and Flame Wizard is enough to get the 3 human bonus. And you could even drop one of those mages and say that you have DK in, and then you're still looking at the 6 mage 5 dragon build. And now the number of rounds that you have to win with 3 human goes from 20, which is a tall order, to 10. And I think that's pretty realistic. If you high roll or you get your composition up and running by the early 20s, it's not super unrealistic to go on a 10 round win streak and by the mid 30s have 10 books of experience accumulated to go to a level 11. So I think this is a really nice change. I think human actually got worse when it changed from having the passive silence to getting the books of experience. Especially after mages in the early game became harder to pull off with dropping Shining Dragon. So I think this is a nice change, and it's going to be fun to see some unique compositions that hit level 11 in competitive play. Okay, those are my thoughts on the changes. I like that many of the changes we see here are small tweaks, and I'd like to see more of that in the game. Perhaps revisiting some older items, some older units that are a little bit less strong than they should be, and instead of rethinking them or retiring those units, try a 5% tweak here, a 10% tweak there, to bring those units more in line with the power level of other units. So I think this is a good direction for changes, and I'd like to see more of this in the future. As always, let me know what your thoughts are, and I'd like to hear the community's discussion on this. Thanks, and bye-bye.